The military has been helping Colorado through its COVID surge. Now they're on to the next area in crisis.
And you always worry about what the next day is going to look like, for sure.
If the I-70 truck driver's sentence is reduced after killing 4 people, what is a fair amount of time to serve for that crime? A wish long ago turns into a gift today.
Out of my son's circumstances 21 years ago, some little girl's riding a bike.
And we can provide Coloradans with homes for the holidays. Don't just watch. Let's do some good together. This is next. Colorado's fall COVID surge was so serious, the military was called in to help a hospital in northern Colorado cope. The Department of Defense COVID surge teams only respond to the most overwhelmed hospitals. They got here a month ago, and our Mark Salinger talked to them as they prepared to leave.
It's emotional sometimes, having to just continue coming back every day and knowing that you have no idea what's going to happen that day.
They're exhausted, overwhelmed, but still fighting.
I mean, you get tired, and there's burnout, and there's things get put on the back burner, like your own mental well-being.
Sid Cerezo and Ratha Blumenthal are on the front lines. They're nurses at UC Health Poudre Valley Hospital.
It's just what you do. You take care of people, regardless of how stressful it might be, of how busy it might get.
Nearly 2 years into a pandemic, the hospital in Fort Collins needed help. The Air Force responded.
It's just an instant connection.
Captain Troy Geyer.
You know, we want to be where we're needed.
Major Peter Johnson.
This is my second time.
And Major Charlotte Uriarty travel the world with the Department of Defense, providing support to the hospitals that need it most.
They have been pretty much bombarded with patients, and it's just constant.
A month ago, they arrived in Fort Collins at the height of the COVID surge. Now that things have improved at the hospital, they're leaving, wondering what town will need them next.
This is one of those times in your career that you're always going to look back, what you were doing during the COVID pandemic.
My family keeps me going. I feel like I'm doing something important to protect my family also.
She hasn't seen them in a month. Tomorrow, she heads back home to Washington.
My kids definitely, look at that calendar every day and ask me when I'm going to be home.
They came to take the pressure off.
You can actually notice that the nurses on the floor are smiling more and laughing more, and you would not see that a month ago. No joke, you would not see that a month ago.
Now they're leaving, hoping they don't need to return.
I mean, I hope if we do need them, we can ask them to come back. I hope it's that easy. I don't know.
The Department of Defense team members will head out over this next couple days. They're ready to be deployed again wherever they're needed, though they're not sure if or when that'll happen. For now, Kyle, they'll go back home to D.C., where most of them are based, for some much-needed time off.
And they take with them the experience, the real-life learning that they experienced here.
Yeah, a lot of them are sharing information back and forth. I mean, these military team members, they have military training with the Air Force, and they're sharing things about resilience, about dealing with stress, about how they treat all these patients that a lot of the hospital members in Fort Collins just simply don't know. So it's a good exchange of information, if you will.
All right, Mark, thank you very much. 1,026 people are hospitalized with COVID-19 in Colorado right now. It's a small drop from the 1,030 patients the day before. The state's COVID-19 incident commander said today that decrease is good, but pointed out that more than 1,000 patients is still a tough situation. The Omicron variant's been identified in wastewater systems across our state. The health department said today all 21 wastewater systems participating in their detection program have found that signature of Omicron. All 21 are largely spread out across the I-25 corridor from Pueblo, Boulder, up to Fort Collins. Justice. No one definition of that. What would be justice for the 4 families whose loved ones were killed when a semi-truck driver lost his brakes and crashed on I-70? What would be justice for that truck driver, Rohel Aguilera Medeiros? He'll be back in court Monday as a judge reviews his mandatory 110-year prison sentence. Mandatory because of the way that Colorado's laws are written. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
Justicia! Justicia! Justicia. Justice. What does that mean in the case of Rohel Aguilera Medeiros? 4 people were killed when his brakes failed and he crashed his semi-truck into stopped traffic on I-70 in 2019. Last week, a judge sentenced him to 110 years in prison, the required amount state law dictated after he was found guilty of 24 charges, including vehicular homicide. What is justice?
I respect the victims that were involved in this terrible tragedy and the fact that they lost their loved ones. And we need to take that into consideration. But it was an accident. It should be a civil case. It should be in civil court, not in criminal court. And we believe he should be released or with time served.
Domingo Garcia is the national president of LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens. He met with Democratic Governor Jared Polis today to discuss justice, because the governor can consider clemency and reduce the sentence.
What the governor decides to do or not, there's cons and pros either way he goes. So I don't envy his position.
Y'all, we have been working on justice reform in the state of Colorado.
Democratic State Senator Julie Gonzalez is on the state's Sentencing Reform Task Force, which was created last year, and is already working on which crimes get which sentences, even before Kim Kardashian posted about this case.
To everyone who is engaged in this issue around criminal justice reform and the need to end mandatory minimums, I say, welcome to this work.
With the worldwide attention on the 110-year sentence, the question becomes, what is justicia? What is a just sentence for this crash that killed 4 people?
A just sentence would have been giving the trial court judge who heard the case the discretion to make those determinations.
The review of this sentence is already happening on Monday by a Jefferson County judge who may be able to revise the sentence based on a different part of Colorado law, a different part than the one that required the 110-year sentence to begin with. If there is one thing that everyone calling for justice can perhaps agree on, Kyle, is that sentencing in this state is confusing, such as what is the sentence for punishment and then what is the sentence for rehabilitation?
Well, as Senator pointed out there, this is a conversation that is not new to a lot of people. There's just a lot more attention on it.
It reminded me of a George Floyd protest back in May 2020 when Elijah McClain's mom spoke to the crowd and said, "It's great that you're here. Where were you 9 months ago when I started down this journey?" And it gave me that same realization that there are people who've been fighting for sentence reform long before this case got prominent attention.
Yeah, Senator Gonzalez pointed that out today. All right, Marshall, thank you. There truly is nothing like being home for the holidays. So I was thinking that together we might find some Coloradans homes for the holidays and in the months to come. Your Word of Thanks Microgiving campaign this week supports the nonprofit Colorado Village Collaborative as it expands one of its tiny home villages, helping Coloradans transition from homelessness into stable, permanent housing. You've heard us talk about that nonprofit's tiny home villages in Denver before. They provide a safe place for people to stay who aren't feeling safe in the larger homeless shelter environments. Often their tenants are women. The tiny homes serve as a transitional step between living on the streets and finding stable long-term housing. The nonprofit's preparing to move and enlarge its first tiny home village in the spring. It's going to go from 33 to 38 homes. 38, unless we decide that we want to raise funds to add even more homes for the holidays. They tell us they have space if we can do it. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491, and I'll send you that link to donate. Sprint and T-Mobile customers, you're going to need to use the QR code because your carrier blocks our fundraising links. We know that even $5 helps. So, as always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us going. These tiny homes are a safe, stable place for people to stay while they get on their feet and find permanent housing. So, let's build a few more homes for our neighbors.
Looks like somebody went Christmas tree shopping at a public park. Arborists tell us what's left of these trees doesn't stand a good chance. He just wanted his son to be able to ride a bike. Today, 21 years later, one wish leads to another. And a big family affair for a little holiday cheer. Get festive with us. Not too much, just a little. Next.
Colorado's first confirmed livestock kill by a wolf in 70 years did not involve a wolf reintroduced into our state. We know that with confidence because the wolf reintroduction program approved by voters hasn't yet started. Wolves killed a cow-calf in Jackson County last week. Increased livestock kills was one of the main concerns from rural Colorado prior to that vote, where primarily urban and suburban Coloradans approved bringing back gray wolves. That process is still being planned, and the state has until 2023 to finalize it. We know some wolves are already ranging into our state. CPW is going to reimburse this rancher in Jackson County through existing programs for mountain lion and bear kills. There's a decades-old program focused on reducing man-made pollution in national parks and wilderness areas. The state and the feds are renewing their deal to continue doing that work for decades to come. There are 12 spots in Colorado protected by the regional Haze program. It includes national parks and wilderness areas. States put together a plan every 10 years that focuses on pollution sources that are within their control. Then you got things like wildfires, such as the two that burned through Rocky last year. Those are not included in this.
The EPA recognizes that while wildfire impacts are obviously getting worse due to climate change, there's nothing we can do in terms of installing an emission control device that would result in fewer wildfire emissions. So through the monitoring, which is actually a system of particulate matter monitors throughout the state, they're able to look at the different types of particles that are on those filters. And then we basically remove the wildfire impacts from what we do for our modeling, and then for also looking at what types of pollutant reductions we're going to be looking at from emission sources that we can control.
The state's plan focuses on cutting 4,000 tons of emissions by creating rules and regulations for the largest polluters, like the Suncor refiner in Commerce City. This program runs through 2064. We're getting some feedback after showing you a holiday fail of criminal proportions last night. It appears some fool or some fools in Wheat Ridge cut down 2 trees at a local park like they're picking out a Christmas tree at a national forest, and they left the bottom of the trees behind. We heard from viewers convinced that the remaining bottom portions of the trees would be just fine. They'll regrow or some such thing. Mary Beth says her family cuts its Christmas tree off the tops of the large spruces or firs on their property every year. Linda up in Estes Park said that, well, when her spruce tree got scratched down by an elk, she just turned it into a shrub. Well, Wheat Ridge Forestry and Open Space Supervisor Andrew McDonald told us even if the topped-off trees were to survive, they'd be stressed and at risk for disease. And Ben Rickenbacher with the Denver Forestry Department says the tree may show some new growth where the cut was made, but when a tree's cut back that much, there's very little hope for it to be healthy. Wheat Ridge says one of its priorities as a city is increasing their urban canopy. So after this, they're going to plant 4 trees to replace the 2 lost to someone's foolishness.
Well, today marked another warm day for us here into Denver, and we've seen less than a half inch of snowfall so far this season. So I thought it might be fun to take a look at some places that have seen more snow than Denver so far this season. That includes places like northern Egypt, Hawaii, and England. Now, here in Denver for your day today, they get up to 64 degrees, 40s and 50s, generally speaking, for us into the mountains. But it's all about to change. Big storm system out west. This is going to be our next big weather maker, especially for the mountains, where we'll see a lot of snow starting up about midday or so tomorrow, and winter storm warnings in place for us into the western mountains and into the Front Range. We're going to mostly stay on the dry side, but that snow starts up about midday or so tomorrow into the mountains, and it will stay on the snowy side through Friday and then into your Christmas morning. So some decent snow on its way for much of Colorado.
You're inspiring us to do less this holiday season, to pass up the flashy light displays for a little holiday cheer. Craig lives in Westminster. Each year, he decorates his cactus. We asked, Craig says the cactus actually fares quite well in Colorado, says the cactus has been in the yard for at least 9 years now. I could drive past and tell you that that's a shrub. Jonathan from Castle Rock, he's a guy after my own heart. It's not the beer sign either. It's the festive smoker decked out in the multicolored lights. And how about the tree at Rich and Sherry's house in Brighton? It's a touch asymmetrical. The little Santa hat really completes the look. If you say that is a tree that has been blown about by nature, you're correct. Getting a tree from a national forest, Knotson Park in Wheat Ridge, is a bit of a tradition for Sherry and Rich's family. They went out with their permit this year and they picked a tree. They fell behind on the decorations, and they said when they saw our segment celebrating a little holiday cheer, they went with it.
Today, she learned how to ride a bike.
Just so happens that now's when she gets a bike, right before Christmas.
Tomorrow and all the days after that, she can keep riding, thanks to a gift that started with a wish. And another chance to help your fellow Coloradans find a place to call home on their road to permanent housing. Next. Watching someone unwrap your gift is a gift in and of itself. A nonprofit founder received that gift, and our photojournalist Mike Grady was there to see that moment.
Hey, my son, right here's your bike. Okay, here, let me take your cane from you.
Feeling comfortable with new toys is kind of a process.
And then you come down here, and this is where your bottom's going to sit, right there.
Romina Cabada is enjoying her new bike day with a hand from Eric Miller.
And then you have a water bottle.
Getting kids with vision problems on tandems has been Eric's mission for 2 decades.
It's good because it's tall.
And my son had brain cancer, and he's blind. He had a brain tumor that caused his blindness. And I thought to myself, gosh, if this could happen for my son, what could happen to some other children? If they're blind, probably riding a bike isn't top on their list of things that they're probably going to do. And a tandem takes that barrier away.
Eric's Rush Miller Foundation raised money to get this rig.
What caused her blindness? Okay, retinopathy of prematurity.
Romina's new ride still feels a little sketch.
You okay?
I'm afraid.
Oh, don't worry. I'm going to ride with you first, so don't worry. I haven't fallen off a bike at all today. Are you on?
Oh, I know.
Smile. Here we go.
Each one of these rides means so much.
Oh my gosh!
This was born out of a lot of sadness. And the only thing that makes it worth it. Yeah. It's awesome.
The world has a new stoker, and Romina's mom learns to captain right in front of her.
Yeah, it is what it's all about, but it's making me nervous.
For the first time, Eric is helping Romina feel how fun bikes can be.
Out of my son's circumstances 21 years ago, some little girl's riding a bike, right?
Derecha, izquierda.
For next, I'm Mike Grady.
Romina's family told us they'll work with the Rush Miller Foundation to fundraise for the next kid who needs a bike. So we're building homes for the holidays. How about that? And you get the final word with your feedback next. Our Word of Thanks Microgiving campaign this week is literally providing homes for our neighbors as they leave life on the streets and transition into stable housing. Tiny homes, so donation goes a long way for their construction. Colorado Village Collaborative is preparing to move and enlarge one of its 2 tiny home villages early next year. And they have room for more tiny homes on that property if we can help fund the construction. Text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 and I'll send you that link to join me in donating. Apologize, a number of you noted that there was an issue with the QR code tonight. We are getting that fixed right away. It was sending people to last week's campaign. You can still text to give or find that link on the 9 News social media accounts. See you next time.